Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Amanda Fest podcast, where our mission is simple. It's to inspire and empower you to take aligned action towards your dream life, whatever that looks like for you. I am so excited about today's guest. We have Robbie Bent, the co-founder and CEO of Othership. If you haven't heard of Othership before, it is a super intentional wellness space and app that is rethinking how we connect to ourselves and each other, using tools like sauna, cold plunge, and breathwork. What started as a backyard ice bath experiment with his wife and some friends has now grown into physical spaces across North America and a top-rated breathwork app with thousands of five-star reviews. Robbie's story is absolutely wild. From crypto to burnout to building a community rooted in healing, play, and transformation. I am so excited for you all to hear this one. But as we've done with every episode, before we dive into this conversation, we're just going to take a moment to ground down. So wherever you are, whatever you're doing, if it's safe to do so, I invite you to close down your eyes. I like to put a hand on my heart and one on my belly, just to connect to the here and now. We're just going to start breathing in through our nose and out through our mouth. Taking a moment to drop in, acknowledge where we're at, how we're feeling right now, what's alive for us in this moment. Not judging it, nothing's good, bad, right, or wrong. Just noticing. And with your inhale through your nose, I want you to start thinking about an intention for this 45-minute session. What are you calling in? What do you want to be filled up with? I want you to imagine with that inhale, you're filling your body up with that intention. And then on the exhale with your mouth, you're really releasing anything that's not in line with that intention. So letting go any stress, worry, anxiety, we're just going to leave that at the door. Release that with the breath. So a few breaths like that, in through the nose, out through the mouth, in through the nose, out through the mouth. And on this last one, I really want you to feel free to make some noise, shake it out, do what you got to do to get here and now. So in through the nose and welcome to your bodies. Welcome to this present moment and welcome to Amanda Fest. I'm going to get Robbie off of mute. There we go. Hi, Robbie. Welcome to Amanda Fest. How are you?
I'm great. Hello.
Hello. I was a little bit nervous about leading a drop-in with the professional here, but it's something that I like to do at the beginning of every podcast because as we've seen, water spills and kids are screaming and things are happening and life is lifing, and it's always great to just have an opportunity to ground before we have a conversation or listen to a conversation. So thank you for doing that with me, and thank you for saying yes to being here.
Absolutely. Yeah, my son's playing a giant trumpet downstairs, so perfect. Perfect to take a couple minutes. I actually missed my meditation this morning too, so it was lovely.
Beautiful. Thank you. Well, I gave a little bit of an intro at the top, but I'd love for you to share a little bit about what Othership is. I'll just let you know before we dive in. I discovered Othership I knew about it. I had heard about it right when you guys opened. So I'm fully nomadic right now. I was in New York City this summer. Right when you guys opened, it was buzzing. Everybody was talking about it. I had intended to go. It was like on my bucket list. And then I left New York. I came back in October and I was on the plane and I'm texting a buddy of mine who I hadn't seen in years. And he was like, hey, I'm going to this place tonight. If you want to come with me. It ended up being Othership. And it was like this perfect miraculous series of events the first time I went, where it was like, I was on the plane. I got an invite. I had a free pass from sharing something of yours. I got off the plane, arrived at the apartment, put my bag down, hopped on a city bike, and was in a class within an hour. And then I got to my first class. It was on a Friday and there was a beat drop after it. So I ended up staying for 4 or 5 hours the first time I ever went. And I was like, I'm so in love with this place. I'm obsessed. And then I was going every single week, multiple times a week for a week. So it was a really fun intro into the space.
That's amazing. Do you remember what your first class was?
I think it was a gratitude class.
Cool.
Yeah, yeah. And then the beat drop, obviously, right after that. So there's all these different classes that you guys do. And then after, is it usually on Saturday nights that you guys do the DJs?
Hmm.
Yeah, so you guys have these like epic DJ parties, and you had a collaboration event with Hot and Social that night. So it was like a dating event. And I was just like, I was on a plane 2 hours ago. I'm here. I'm in this experience. I think I stayed until 12:30 in the morning. I was like, I want to live here. I'm obsessed with this space. It is so amazing. So yeah, I'd love to pass the torch over to you and hear a little bit about just what Othership is and what you guys are doing with this.
Yeah, it's really a space to help people in like super intense city life. One, find connection and friend, and then two, process emotions. So both of those things are like really hard to do if you live in places like New York and Dallas, Toronto, anywhere where you're on your phone and you're working, especially you maybe have a family, like life has just become extremely chaotic and lonely. Me personally, I order Uber Eats a ton. I work from home. Even with a community business, it's difficult to find connection versus the way I grew up. So I really wanted to build something that was focused on health, but sort of as a secondary impact. So like doing the thing was healthy, but you weren't going there to be healthy.
Right.
And we found a lot of, it's so hard to fit health into your routine with like exercise and meditation and diet and all these things. And like you're busy all day. And so we wanted to have something that was like available in the evening that was like really fun. And you went primarily because it was fun instead of going to maybe a comedy show or a concert or on a date. You could come here and it would be healthy for you. And so
Yeah.
we chose the modality of the hot and cold as they change your neurochemistry in the brain. So they help you to feel like present. You're not on your phone. You're not wearing any clothes. You're wrapped in a towel. It really is like an equalizer versus what you look like with other people, I find. You don't have to worry about what you're going to wear. Like we'll have New Year's parties and we'll show up in a giant sweatsuit and throw on a sauna hat. And it's awesome. So really it was a space to meet new people that are also interested in health, that are possibly sober curious, and have
Yeah.
a safe, like cool space to do that. And then the emotional processing, I have struggled with drugs and alcohol for most of my life and been sober from alcohol and cocaine for 10 years. And to do that, I went to, Tony Robbins and Landmark and Hoffman and therapy and Cocaine Anonymous and Vipassana retreats and psychedelic medicine retreats and all these different modalities. I lived in a cave for 8 days and I had to try and mesh all these things together. And what I learned from all that was the root cause is just important each week to feel your emotions. And that sounds super simple, but that's really what it is. What has been worked for me during, my therapy sessions is like just feeling an emotion in my body, like, oh man, I'm really feeling scarcity mindset with work right now. I don't know if this is going to work. My house is mortgaged and I'm going to lose all my money. Like, what does that feel like? Or, hey, I'm feeling jealous in my relationship, or I'm feeling imposter syndrome at work. So these things run subconsciously. I found a lot of power in processing emotions, but there's not really a place to do that that's like inspiring and affordable. Therapy's great, but it's expensive and it's done on Zoom. And it feels like when I do therapy, like, oh, there's something wrong with me. We wanted to have this space where it made feeling into your emotions kind of feel the same way as going to a fitness class. And so we have all these classes on like acceptance where you might be dealing with a breakup or somebody in your family passing, like a difficult feeling. We have a class called release. We've got, as you mentioned, gratitude, loving kindness,
Mm.
emotions A to Z, which is experiencing both pleasant and unpleasant emotions. And so some of the classes are like body based. So there's some that are like really basic, deep stretch, nervous system reset, unwind. They're more about getting into your body and letting go. Some are like more fun based. And so it's like 80s dance party, call and response, people are singing.
Right.
And then the deeper classes, which is like our signature, which is really what we built Othership for. It's not for everybody, but we want to create a world where people do emotional work once a week and they see it as part
Love
of their
that.
routine. And so that's where we put most of our effort into designing these classes for emotional processing. So it's kind of a mix of, 4 classes a day. And then the rest of the time it's free flow where you can just kind of drop in and use the spaces you want. So if you were in town and we wanted to grab a coffee, we could go do it at
Yeah.
Othership instead of a coffee shop. And then at night, it's more of that sober connection element. And so we have these beat drops where DJs come in. We'll have these new things called heat waves, which are like full on
With the
sauna waves.
Daybreaker, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so
So
those have been really
epic.
successful. And that wasn't really the intention when we opened. It kind of happened over time. And now we're seeing like, famous DJs coming in and doing sets. And it's kind of like a boiler room style where everybody's sober. Sometimes they happen at 6 in the morning. as a way to start your day on like a Wednesday. So those have been popular. We've added other social events like comedy nights where stand-up comics will perform in the sauna, music listening parties, which have been really cool, karaoke nights, singles nights. You mentioned hot and social.
Yeah.
That was a really cool one. So we'll have two sets. So one is like a singles party where it's like less programmed, and others are like matchmaking events where you'll come and you'll do like ice bath icebreakers with different people over 20 seconds and share questions. And so it's kind of a mix of emotional classes meets anything you would do around alcohol, trying to bring it into a new environment.
So cool. I'm like, this is my absolute bread and butter. My brand, Amanda Fest, beyond the podcast, it's all about inspiring intentionality, connection, and play. And I talk a lot about intentional consumption, right? So often with drugs, with alcohol, with technology, with all these things, we're running on autopilot. We're not even aware of how we're using these things as a way to numb, suppress, and avoid our emotions. And to your point, having practices where it's like, it sounds so easy to feel your emotions, but we're programmed to, you had a hard day, here, have a drink, right? Like that's just in our society, that's in our psychology. And to be able to flip the script in a way that you guys are of, hey, you have other options. I feel like so often people feel like they have to choose one path or the other. It's either I'm out and I'm social and I'm networking and I'm having a good time, or I'm a hermit and I can't leave my house. And I feel like you guys are offering a really beautiful and healthy middle ground. It's really a bridge and a gateway drug to the health and wellness space. Because it sounds like for you and for me who have done the yoga and the retreats and the psychedelic medicine and all these different things, sitting in a class and eye gazing is normal. But my friends from Google that I brought to Othership are sitting in the class and they're like, I've never done anything like this before. This is scary and like, wow. And then you hear the people talk at the end and you're like, whoa, you're cracking people open that maybe wouldn't have been open to experiencing something like this before. So that's so fucking cool. What did this go from being something that you're interested in to something that you were interested in creating as a business? And what was that process like?
Yeah, I think it's really hard to just create a business from like, hey, I'm going to make a business. I've done a tech company that failed and was like, oh, this seems like an opportunity where we can make a lot of money. I did, worked in finance before that, kind of washed out, didn't really like it. And once I worked there for a couple of years, tried to do it again in hardware, and then worked in crypto, as you mentioned, early on at Ethereum, which I actually loved, but I wasn't like building the product there and being around people and music and being social. And like, it just was always really fun for me, laughing with friends. It's so awesome. And I was just nervous because that was what my whole 20s were based on in Toronto. And so we decided to build an ice bath in our backyard with this idea of, can we build a healthy community? And so it was myself, my wife's my co-founder. There's another couple who are like two of my best friends in the world. We all go on family vacations together. And then one of my best friends from university. And so the five of us built this ice bath in our backyard. And every night one of us would be out there, and it was free for the neighborhood. And it wasn't meant to be a business. It was just like, hey, come and, hang out. And we'd have towels and a fire pit going. And people would kind of come out and we would just invite them there. And every day it was open. So if you knew about it, you could just open this back gate on this residential street in Toronto and come and ice bath. And then there was a WhatsApp group. It's really nice when you can do something that you love and there's a creation aspect to it. Mm-hmm. And so I think starting with curiosity, like, for us, we just really wanted to have more healthy friends in Toronto. And we had moved back to Toronto. I'd been sober for about 4 years, my wife and I was worried about getting back into like drug use. I love partying. Like I love going out. Okay, I'm going, and people would just start meeting each other and hanging out. And as it got colder, we converted my garage into a space. And even the idea behind that, it was like kind of just by donation. And it was like, well, this is a cool neighborhood space that we can use. And I'm personally obsessed with sauna and ice bath, and have been doing it for, since I got sober. Actually, this was the first date my wife took me on. She's like, hey, I've heard about ice baths on the Rhonda Patrick podcast, and I think we should do it as a first date. And so she was like the genesis for my story with sauna and ice baths. And so we went on this first date to this like random Russian bathhouse on the outskirts of town, and it was amazing. We weren't on our phones. We got in the plunge. It was like instantly just like, whoa, like we're here. It was
no makeup, no outfits, no like.
No, it was perfect. It seemed weird at the time. People were like, whoa, that's your first date, but now it's happening all the time. And like,
That's how I dated all summer. I either wanted to go on a walk or go to Othership. And any guy that said no to going to Othership, I was like, I'm sorry. Like, that's what
Yeah,
I want
so
to do.
you see it now in like people's dating profiles and stuff, which I think is really cool and like a sign of culture happening. So we went on that first date. We would do it every week. We'd go to bathhouses to be a space without alcohol. And so we started this thing, and then this garage space was just kind of, another way of like I was just using it every day anyways. And
Right.
then I made so many friends, like people that came to my wedding, and I've probably met thousands and thousands of like awesome people in the last couple years, and dozens of them have become really, really close friends. And we just had this really cool neighborhood space. And during that time over Christmas, somebody had reached out and just said like, hey, this space really helped me. It was during COVID, so people were coming in their social bubble. We opened in like October, the garage, and then COVID hit in February. So we had a good community. It was like almost 1,000 people, and people were
Wow.
coming as friends and meeting friends and stopping drinking. And we just got so many messages that it was like, whoa, this is really cool. And so the five of us all put up a couple $100,000, and we leased a space in Toronto. And we'd had experience building restaurants and nightclubs, so it wasn't like, oh, let's go do this thing. Like we knew how to do a lease, we knew how to do construction.
Right.
So we designed this space, and it was a pretty big risk at the time, but it was like, okay, if we lose this money, like it would hurt, but it wouldn't be life ending. And we thought like, there's nothing like this anywhere in Toronto. We thought for sure people will come. We had no idea that it would be as successful as it was,
Right.
because it felt pretty niche at first, like these classes and would people be coming at night. It's right in the entertainment district in Toronto where like all the nightclubs are.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like hey, this is a new way to do nightlife.
Right.
And that's become so popular. And so it was at the time though, like pretty scary. And when we
Yeah.
opened that first one, that's when it kind of became a real business. About 3 months in, we had, kind of lines and just so much hype around it, and people like having such a good time and leaving such great reviews that we were like, okay, this is really cool. And like the way people are behaving and making friends and finding partners, like we've never seen anything like this.
Yeah.
So we ended up going on a research trip to New York and LA and Miami and Dallas to kind of look at like what were in these markets. And there was
Right.
really, really nothing like Othership kind of anywhere in the world. Now we've inspired a movement of more places are popping up. So that's really cool. But at the time, there was no such thing as a sauna and ice bath class. And so we're like, I think there's really a big opportunity to be the world leader in this thing. And at that point, about 3 months in, so in 2022, it became a real business.
I've been to tons of other ice bath, sauna places, but I'm telling you, the feeling that you get when you walk into an Othership is like, I got there and immediately my entire nervous system was relaxed. I was just like, okay, this is the real deal. You could feel the ethos from the front desk people to when you get into the community room and then you walk into the class, and just the way that you guys have created the physical space, like with the incense, you're hitting on all of the different elements. And again, as somebody who's been very deep in like the health and wellness world and very deep in the spirituality path, you do such a good job of merging the worlds and blending them in a way that feels approachable. I have a friend that leads men's groups, and he talks about how at the beginning of the men's groups, he'll always start with a workout or he'll start with something physical, because a lot of people who are struggling with connecting deeper to themselves, it's a lot easier to start with the external before you go internal. I imagine certain people are coming in having no idea there's going to be an emotional element to it. They're just thinking we're going to go sauna and cold plunge, and they get there and they're like, oh shit, we're feeling feelings. Do you feel like that happens pretty often?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a Trojan horse into doing emotional work where you're going to a space that's really cool, and like it is. And I mean, it's the highest quality sauna ice bath stuff in the world, and especially when you consider the price point. So it's people are mostly coming for that, and a lot of people who are initially coming were like for health. They'd heard about it on like Mark Hyman's podcast or Rhonda Patrick or Joe Rogan, and it's like, oh, I'm coming for health, or they see it on Instagram and are like, oh, this is really cool, and then all of a sudden you're in this class and it's like, whoa, somebody sharing about a breakup they went through, or a birth of their child, and it's just like it becomes something different, which is really nice. And like some people aren't into it, a lot of people are, and it kind of also self-selects, because if people are into feeling these emotions, then those are the people that come to the socials and the dating nights, and so it sort of self-selects a particular culture of people and community, which is really cool. It's like the classes set the culture for the rest of the space.
Yeah.
So we put a lot of effort into just making it known that like, yeah, these are emotionally driven classes, and that's really important to us.
I was listening to something recently where you were talking about how you guys curate the classes. Can you talk a little bit about what the process of the creation of these classes are? And I've spoken to a handful of guides that are guiding the experiences, and they were like, it's a legit training program to become a guide at Othership. So I'd love to hear about both of those processes.
So when we opened, there was no such thing as this modality because it's weaving elements of breath work, the science related to hot and cold, the performance art of towel waving and dance, group sharing and group facilitating, which came from a lot of work we've done with like men's work and some of these different places I mentioned earlier, visualizations, which comes from cognitive behavioral therapy. So there's just like a ton of different modalities. So there was no one who had done like a sauna class. It didn't exist. So you couldn't hire like a yoga instructor. So my co-founders actually created all the classes from scratch. And so that process is, we'll look at an emotion that people are looking to feel or are struggling with. So I've personally done more than 1,000 customer interviews, and I'll kind of ask people when they come in, like, hey, how are you feeling? What's coming up? And like, what are you dealing with right now? And the things that come up the most, we start to create classes around those. We'll also do like talent shows where our guides will come in and perform little 5-minute segments, and we'll get ideas from that. We'll get ideas from like popular topics on social media. So for example, a class that was like recently dropped is gratitude. And it took a really long time to create because we're very science backed. So, my co-founder actually listened to Andrew Huberman's podcast, 3 hours on gratitude.
Yeah.
He references all the papers. So it's not just like, say the list of what you're grateful for.
Yeah.
Like you'd normally hear. There's like science. So it's just some crazy stats I'd heard. It was like 1 to 3 minutes a day throughout a week of just feeling into a moment you felt gratitude can change your feelings of well-being on the same amount as exercise and sleep.
Wow.
So it's like this tenet that like people don't really know about. So we listen to that, we're like, whoa, that's crazy. And so he talks about it's not just like writing a list, it's actually telling a story in your mind about a very specific moment and feeling that story has. And once you have it once, it's going back to that and feeling it in your body. And that's what makes the changes, not like I'm grateful for my coffee. It's like an actual feeling.
Right.
So we learned that. And then my co-founder, Harry, went and read like 15 papers he's researched.
Yeah.
And then he like writes a script. And so the script will have like state changing elements. So really intense breath work to start. So it's improving your nervous system state to get into a state like, and then this comes from Tony Robbins. We call it on our space to shift your state. And so it's like using breath work, heat, some of these things to start changing your state to then go into the visualizations. So that particular class has, okay, what state do we want people to feel? What are the science-backed exercises that are going to improve gratitude? And then what is the music? So then we will mix and master 20 minutes of sessions to match the music, whether it's breath work or the visualizations, and we'll actually layer in the breath work in the music. So one class, it's a 20-minute segment that is like pre-programmed exactly. So you know what you're getting. So I think it's interesting because a lot of yoga and these other types of classes are freestyled, which some people really love, but our classes are more like seeing a Broadway show. They're like a performance. And then within that, we'll also determine like what scents match gratitude. So each class snowball is thrown over. And so everything is like being created around this particular feeling. And then all of that will be scripted and put into a giant document that like takes an hour to watch. And then guides will learn classes. And so we have 30 classes. I mentioned before, like self-care sweat is a really fun one where you're using gua sha and different body tools to get into tension in the body. You're doing
I have to do that one.
Yeah, it's really, really fun. And there's 2 versions of that. One is like an up, like really fun version. And one was the down, more meditative version.
Right.
And so the music changes, the guide's tone of voice changes. So that's where we spend most of our time. And some classes are more fun. Like the newest one Harry's working on is called Journey Through the Seasons. And it's really meant to be nostalgic and make you feel moments of childhood to like invoke a sense of play. And so for winter, there's like a cinnamon snowball, and so, and like, it's kind of like feelings of Christmas and snow. And so there's all kinds of, each class has like these elements between sauna, ice bath, and then the group share after the class, which kind of opens up the ability. We feel it's like, that's like kind of the most important and like unique thing to Othership.
Yeah.
Having a time for people to share, but some people feel uncomfortable with that, and like, well, it makes me feel so great when somebody will come 10 times and will never be comfortable feeling like they could share in a group, and then breaks through and shares and then becomes like a sharer.
Yeah.
So that's like really cool also. And then each of these classes need to then be trained. And so guides need to learn them. And it's kind of like learning a play. And so the guide training is over 200 hours. There's a massive online component, and we're training everything I'd mentioned. So the science of breathwork and different breathing
Right.
techniques, how to guide music to the beat, when to guide what type of breathwork training. We have a massive hospitality component because we really believe you need to feel safe to experience emotions. So,
Yeah.
how do you talk to the journeyers? What are you asking them? How do you encourage connections between journeyers? We're training towel waving techniques. We're training aromatherapy and like the different type of essential oils and what those do. So it's quite robust in terms
Right.
of the things you're learning, and it's like very, very hard for the guides to do because the environment is crazy and you're like moving around. You're trying to remember all the script. You're throwing the snowballs on. You need to be in sync to the music. The entire thing is choreographed, moving people through the space also, which is challenging.
Right. And then you want to be present and like available.
Yeah, so lots of training. We've probably done over 1,000 auditions at this point
Wow.
over the last 5 years. So we have a really good sense of like what type of personality can become an amazing
Yeah.
guide and what's required. And so we've hired more guides than anyone else in the world.
What are some of those elements that you guys are looking for in terms of a guide?
Funny enough, we found a lot of success with guides that like to perform.
Yeah.
So actors and musicians have been fantastic in the past. We've also had a lot of success with people that are natural nurturers.
Mm-hmm.
So nurses, teachers have been excellent as well. And then we've had success with people that are like very social and like, like there's types of like the beat drop, there's an energy there. And so there's a
Right.
person, one of our favorite social guys was a real estate agent, and he just
Yeah.
loved selling. He used to love to party, so he would be there at night, spinning the towel, talking to everybody. So different qualities make for different guides, but we found like the number one thing is that they use the product a lot themselves and
Yeah.
like love it. And then an anti-signal that we found is if people are too performative.
Mm,
So it's not, we don't see our guides as coaches. So we're not trying to give advice. And why we do that is because everyone's from a different walk of life. And
mm-hmm.
you come in and you're maybe a 60-year-old grandmother, your life experience is not necessarily relevant to somebody who's a 28-year-old guide.
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
just the generalizations there. But what
Yeah.
we
Yeah. Yeah.
found is like tailored advice. We're not training coaches or therapists. We are just
Right.
training guides and facilitators to facilitate a very specific experience and hold space. And so the guides that perform the best and get the best reviews are ones that act more like mirrors than coaches. And so in the share
Love
segment,
that.
someone says something and it's just like, sounds like you're feeling X. Let's take a big deep breath in for you.
Yeah.
And not, some guides will come and want to give advice and want to be coaches. And that's just not the service we're trying to provide at Othership.
Right. I absolutely love that. I think it's so beautiful. And again, as somebody on the experiential end of it, like hearing the backstory of how carefully curated all these classes are and the guides, like it's so felt on the receiving end. So I just want to acknowledge that and thank you for building this and creating this magical thing. I'm really curious to hear. I always love to hear how the love story kind of intermingles into this. And I'm always very inspired by partners that are in business together, that are working together. And it sounds like your wife from the very beginning was a big inspiration in the curation of Othership. I'd love to hear a little bit about what that interaction is like. And I listened to a podcast recently where I heard that all the co-founders are living in a house together in Brooklyn. I was like, that's so fucking cool. Like, I love that.
Yeah, I think it's like, 5 co-founders is pretty rare. I don't think I've ever heard of 2 couples co-founding a business before. Yeah, so it's like a superpower. I think like definitely there's potential for challenges, but we've been working together for so long. We all had a team coach for a while. We do our vacations together, retreats together. And so just when it works, there's 5 people with that co-founder energy. It makes a big difference. When you're around a co-founder who founded the business, you're always getting tapped into the vision and what's important
Right.
and why it's important, how much these people care. And so to have that times 5, it's like turbocharging the culture of the business and the inspiration of people. And so with my wife, she's our head of brand, and like the level of detail she cares about, it's like insane. Like the email receipts that you get are like custom branded. The towels, we designed ourselves like a very specific size that we feel is like most comfortable to wrap around your body. So if you're worried about body positivity, you can still feel good. The, incense my partner Harry creates from scratch, and we actually like hand dip it in the ships and like make it by hand. So I just think you get 5 people who care that much about the craft. It's like pretty rare and cool. And then for us, like working together, my wife also built our app. She manages the entire team, and then Harry and Amanda created all the content internally. So every single breath work we've like
Right.
actually created, scripted. It's not like, hey, we have this cool business idea, let's go find people. Like we do it all ourselves.
Yeah.
And I think just in working with your partner, it's so powerful to both have a mission that you believe in. It
Right.
just gives like something, an extra layer to your relationship. I can see how it doesn't work in some cases because like both of us care the same amount.
Yeah.
So it works because like we're just so excited about like trying. Like we'll go for a
Yeah.
walk and we'll be talking about like she'll like, oh my god, I just designed this new sauna bucket hat. Like it's so sick.
I think it's amazing too, because you hear from so many, I've worked in Hollywood for a while and I've worked with successful actors and entrepreneurs and all these people. And I find that with so many people that are really, really passionate about something, they have difficulty in relationship because there is no off switch. You do want to talk about work and you're like living and breathing this work that you're in all the time. And so I imagine having a partner that is also in the same mission, aligned and excited about the same things. It sounds like it could be really cool to not have to be like, all right, work off, relationship on. It's like kind of this intermingling of it's all work, play, life. It's not these separate segments of your reality. It's all intermingled.
Yeah, I just think if you want to build something like really large, it's really challenging, and you kind of have to be thinking about it literally all the time.
Yeah.
And so this is our relationship, it's our life, it's our friendships. It's like, yeah, if you want to compete against us, that's just what we're thinking about. Like literally 18
It's your
hours a day,
it's your world. It's
every
your whole
day. It's like
world.
kind of all
Yeah.
we do. So I just think and that's why we've grown as fast as we have, and it's been successful, is just because that's like what I do for fun and what my wife does for fun and what our friend, like what Harry, Amanda, and Miles do for fun. So I think it's very important to be all in when you're in the
Mhm.
stage of creating. It gets a little bit less later on, but in the early stage, you have to care that much. And I think it would be very hard for us if one partner cared this much and one partner wasn't involved, because it's probably 70% of our life at this point.
Totally. I guess that also falls in line with creating something that you're actually passionate about, that you actually care about, right? I know that you've had a lot of experience with different businesses. What have you found in terms of creation from a place of monetization versus creation from a place of passion?
I think it's just easier to create a better product. So, I've been to over 500 Othership classes, and I go because I love them. And so when I'm in
Yeah.
thinking about like, oh my God, if we just change this language a little bit here, if we like just change this sense a little bit, the check-in, the intro, if it could be a minute shorter, like I'm doing that all the time because I love it.
Right.
I use our app. I'm like always doing these community events, and like I'm going to other events thinking about like, oh, how could we use this in our space? So it's just different. I think if you're creating for money, there's like an off switch there. It's very hard to maintain that over a long period of time, especially when I had this
Right.
business that was a roaming solution. And like, I didn't give a fuck about roaming. And when it started, it was like a saving on roaming when you traveled.
Yeah.
And as soon as things started to go bad, it's like, okay, if I don't feel like I can get rich from this anymore, it's like really hard to stay interested. Whereas in Othership, I mean, the app we just built for free. It was something we did for fun.
The app is amazing too. Like you could just have the app and it could be like its own successful thing on its own.
Well, that's awesome that you love it. And
Yeah.
but it was like honestly, like Friday nights we were just in COVID and we were doing breath work at our own house, and we would pick
Right.
songs and guide it, and we're like, this is so cool and fun. And so that's what Harry chooses most of the music now. We have a bit more of a team under him. But him and Amanda, like that's what they'll do for fun. He'll go up to his cottage for 4 days and you won't hear from him, and he'll come back and be like, hey, I just curated this like 1,000 song playlist. I think when you're passionate about something and have a really strong mission, it's easy to just be thinking about it all the time. We're actually about to sign our 5th lease. I can say it's in New York. So it'll launch next year, and it's 10,000 square feet. So it's double the size of Flatiron. And it's going to
Wow.
be a whole different concept where like half will be traditional Othership and then half we're cooking up something new. And so like thinking about that, it's like amazing. It's just like totally
Yeah.
reinvigorated everything. So there's just, I think when you're passionate, I would rather do this than almost anything else in the world. Even if we sold a bit, like, well, one, I don't really want to ever sell a business, but if we
Right.
sold the business, I would just do another business like this. So I think that's like
Right.
a good sign, because It doesn't have to be successful. Like, oh my God, I just need to make money and sell this. It's very stressful.
Right.
Whereas this is like, yeah, I'm going to do this forever anyway. So
When you're a kid, people ask you, what do you want to be when you grow up? But I think a very frequent question that people don't ask is like, what do you want your life to feel like? Right. Overall, in every category, in relationship, in work, in business, in life, and pleasure. And to be able to find something that can fulfill you in all those categories is like, it's the dream. And then to get to work with your partner and to work with your best friends and to be doing something you love. I mean, you've definitely cracked the code. And I know that maybe not everybody's super passionate about ice plunging and saunas, but finding whatever that thing that you're passionate about and figuring out a way, how do I build a life around this thing that's going to feel fulfilling, whether I'm making $100 million or, none. I'm curious, when you guys started, what was that process of coming together? It sounds like, Harry's very specialized in a certain thing. Your wife is very specialized. What was that beginning stages process of coming together and being able to figure out what everybody's roles are based on their magic and what they bring to the table?
yeah, that was really tough. And it just takes time, especially the five of us had never worked together before. And
Right.
then it made it easy because it wasn't a business to start. So it was just very chill, like, hey, we're doing this thing because it's fun.
Right.
But as you start to grow and it becomes a real business, then thinking about like how the equity splits will work and stuff like that, it's challenging and hard conversations have to be had. And you just need to make sure everyone's aligned on what their perceived value is versus their value in other people's minds. So that definitely took some time, and we used a coach to do it. And it's like, does everybody have the same drive and like work ethic? And it comes down to like, what value are you driving? And those are
Mhm.
hard conversations. So they just have to be had. Um, but luckily, like we figured that out pretty early, and now it's just very clear, and everybody has sort of grown into what they're best at. But at first, it was like it was kind of unclear,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
kind of over time, you build confidence in like your role, and it goes that way. So that's a little bit vague, but I think my point is just, hey, when you're in a
Yeah.
group, like let it be able to make changes also and not have things set in stone, and like have these conversations frequently, openly, and even if they're hard, I think that's like we'll end up with the best result.
Yeah, I think that's cool to hear that you guys are utilizing a coach. These are difficult conversations. Relationships in general are difficult. And so, knowing that sometimes you do need that external support to kind of navigate and help guide those conversations is a really cool thing to model for sure. I'd love to hear you talked about the new location that is opening up in New York. What is this bigger vision? What are you guys ultimately working towards right now?
Yeah, I really wanted to think over a long time horizon, building something that I kind of cobbled together.
Hmm.
And, when I was struggling. And so that was like the healthy community piece, all these learnings that I went to all these different retreats for. And so I'd like to build something that, like, hey, I'm 30, I'm feeling a little burnt out, I'm not feeling great in today's lifestyle in a city. And I kind of join this ecosystem and it changes my whole life. And so I could
Right.
see, there's other ships in every city as the hub, as the community hub. Within that city, you're able to meet people that are similar and become friends with them. And then there's like a retreat system as well. So probably like 2 or 3 mega retreats around the US. So I would love in like 10 to 20 years to have 50 Othership locations in all the major cities, and then 2 to 3 major retreats that you went on with people from your city. So you end up going in cohorts, making friends, going on retreat together, coming back, and then those friendships last outside of Othership within the cities you're in. And then maybe one like kind of music festival style thing that happens
So
that's like
cool.
similar to a pilgrimage that people would do in religions. And so kind of like a Tony Robbins meets Coachella style vibe where it's like personal development in the day, and then at night
Dance
it's like a
parties.
party. Yeah, but it's like
Yeah.
large scale, like 10,000, 20,000 people. Um, and so I want to see Othership as like a lifestyle where you meet
Yeah.
your friends, you work on your emotional processing weekly. There's deeper retreats as well. So it's kind of like that whole ecosystem is what our goal is.
That's unbelievable. That's so exciting. Well, I'm obviously such a big fan of you guys. I'm very, very grateful that you took the time to connect and, said yes to this. I'm curious, the thing is there incense on that thing that you've been sniffing?
Yeah, I have this is just a car freshener logo, and then we have these essential oil rollers.
Oh, nice.
Uh,
You have those in the shop, yeah?
yeah, yeah. So they're all handmade also. So there's just different blends from our classes. So there's an up, down, and all around blend.
Uh-huh.
There's our signature scent, and then there's a sojourn, which is like our second signature scent. So I'll just put the essential oils on, and all day we'll just be like Yeah, breathing them in.
I'm obsessed. Well, actually, I also want to say before we end, because we kind of touched on it a little bit, but anyone that hasn't been in the class, you mentioned the snowballs. So
Mm.
you guys have your signature scents. You're putting the essential oils in the snowballs and then throwing the snowballs onto the furnace so that these classes throughout the class, as you guys are guiding in different moments, all of a sudden the room smells of a different type of incense, and it sounds like it's all super curated with what you're talking about, what you're moving through, and then what that scent is.
Exactly. So like through a, really challenging moment in a class, we might have cade, which is like a birch tar, and it's like a very heavy and like kind of dank smell. Or through a very loving moment, like the eye gaze you mentioned, we may have like a geranium and citrus mix to kind of enliven people's states. So there's, I think, over 125 different essential oils, and the guides are trained to choose their own essential oils to blend snowballs. And we'll even have a snowball cart sometimes where journeyers can come and ask for what they want and put them on the stove.
So cool. So amazing. Well, yeah, like I said, thank you so much for saying yes, for taking the time. Thank you so much for going all in on your dream and building it and showing people what's possible. I mean, I think that what you're creating is so special, but the way in which you're doing it feels really unique and different, and a beautiful example to anybody that wants to start taking action towards their dreams, that they could just start in their backyard and it can progress into this incredible thing that's continuing to evolve. And so I just want to really honor you and thank you so much for that. And I'm going to put in the show notes below, obviously, the Othership website, the Instagram. I could put your personal Instagram if you want, but if there's anything you want to plug or shout out now, please feel free to do so.
No, that sounds great. Yeah, come find us, and we can put a link for complimentary access to the app as well.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. Best of luck on your opening in New York very soon. I will be there, and I hope to take a class with you soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Amanda.
Thank you. Bye.